Hi, Stephen. Welcome to See Me. Could you give us a little bit of an introduction about you and your background?
Good. Great to be here, Máire. So yeah, I'm Stephen, or Steve, better known as. I'm the head of HR at Cognita, and I look after the non-UAE region, I guess. Like yourself, I'm Irish too, living in the Middle East for the last 3 years. And yeah, HR most of my career. Worked in Ireland as well, worked in the United States, and obviously in the Middle East too. So a diverse background in terms of countries and cultures. And it's a pleasure to be here.
How has your brother shaped your view on neurodiversity? Looking back at your childhood, is there anything that you wish you could have changed?
Childhood wise, it probably comes with a bit of maturity and understanding on it. I guess as kids in general, we're sponges, we're trying to learn things, and we're trying to learn it at a basic and foundation level at our younger years. And as we hit those teenage years, we kind of build our social norms at a more mature level. And now that I'm in my early 30s and still in denial of being in that, you kind of get a bigger and more broader picture of it. So I guess, and I know when we've spoken before, I mentioned this kind of light bulb moment or this catalyst of change in my brother. And it was funny enough, my first year here, my family decided to come out at Christmas time. And again, as you'd mentioned, as we all know, the kind of stereotypes when it comes to categorizing people with autism, for example, the social cues, the lack of eye contact, the quietness when it comes to new people and new places. So obviously somebody like that coming into Dubai from Ireland, it's a huge change. The bright lights, the busyness, the hustle and bustle of Dubai. So funny enough, to kind of give you the pre-Dubai profile of my brother to the post-Dubai profile of my brother, it's quite contrasting in that very quiet, shy at the beginning of the trip. Just the noise of Dubai, the brunch scenes, and all of that. How he just sat there, the normal stereotypical, like, just reserved on his phone. First thing he wanted to do when we got into a bar or restaurant was to get on the Wi-Fi and just take it in, send Snapchats to some of his friends he had back home of being in the bar in Dubai. These little basics, which are basics to us, which was obviously a big step to him. But little did we know at the time that, again, some of the mannerisms remain the same, but the independence started kicking in. I.e., for example, downloading an app for a taxi, Kareem, as we all know it in Dubai, getting home by himself in a big city, whereby if it was back in Tipperary in Ireland, he would have to walk 6 minutes up the road from the shop, for example, to the home house. So then we saw these little kind of behavioural changes of independence in a big city, of him getting home in the evening by himself, ordering food by himself on the same Kareem app. So kind of again, okay, cool, this is different. It's definitely different from his normal routine. But then what really kind of was the light bulb moment for us was when he got home. So pre-Dubai, to kind of bounce back again on that, didn't have a job, had done courses to kind of get himself set up for a job in the future, lived at home, and again didn't go socialise, but very much within the family and the band of friends within the family. So then when he came back from Dubai after that Christmas, having been on the Kareem app, having getting those taxis home, having delivered or getting deliveries of food to my apartment, to then after like 2 weeks back home in Ireland to going down to our local pub, our local bar, sitting with people in the village who he would have ever only walked past in the future and maybe give a nod at best, to now actually engaging with them, not only in the corner of the pub back home, but actually sitting at the bar in front of everyone, in the limelight area, as you want to call it. So we saw that and was like, this is quite different. What's happened? And we're like, let's see how this change is going to develop. So remember, like, the circle was quite routine driven and quite low level of engagement before Dubai. But again, we're starting to see this circle grow in January, February, after Dubai, having seen a different perspective on life and different way of living. And then we started seeing he's applying for jobs through the job network back home. He's obviously developed his CV, which again is very much theoretical based on the course he was developing in the past, and his school and education, to applying for jobs and this kind of hunger to get a job. Again, the support was there from the family. But then got into a job back in Ireland in retail, and obviously the agreement in place was he'd do a certain number of hours per week, and that was it, i.e. that routine that was missing in his life previously from a professional basis.
Yeah.
So then, obviously, working in retail, when it comes to stacking the shelves, customer interactions, and the customer's always right, there's obviously huge levels of change when it comes to people engagement. So then you're thinking in the background is, how is he going to deal with that? Whereas before he'd be quite reserved when it comes to an angry customer or finding an item within the shop floor and dealing with adversity and things where he doesn't have his family and immediate support with him. So lo and behold, he gets this job, gets into the routine. As you imagine with people with autism, routine is key for them. So this new expanded social routine was something that seamlessly, from what I believe, grew into. So again, the support function was still there from the family, giving them the lifts to get the bus into town to work in the retail outlet, to doing these set number of hours, set number of days per week, to getting collected in the evening, combined with the first piece of change we've seen, which is going down to the local pub back home. So he's now working every day, well, 4 days a week, doing his set number of hours, and in the evenings, the 2 nights a week he'd go to the pub. The same time every week, stay the same length. That routine was still built into his social routine and agenda he was building, and it's like, cool, this is starting to grow legs a bit more. Bearing in mind he was probably 25 odd years of age when this started to kind of kick in, that catalyst for change. And then all of a sudden, the urge came from him as to, I want my own house. And funny enough, living in Dubai for 3 years now myself, this is the first time at the age of 30 that I've been able to live independently myself without living with roommates and stuff. So like, he's doing it 4 or 5 years before me. I'm like, why didn't I do that at an earlier age? So funny enough, he's ended up getting a house now as well, has the same job. He's there coming a year at this point, still has his routine with going down to the pub back home, socialising with people. And his network has went from this and his circle to literally this. And funny enough, him and the family came back out again at Christmas. And it's kind of like the new routine now. Whether it's going to be Dubai every year for Christmas for him, the family, that's questionable. But that little holiday for 10 odd days of Christmas changed the social circle from this size to this huge circle now.
Have you ever asked him why?
You see, the thing is, the why part is the realization part is. So I think it's just you hit that stage and the switch comes with that realization piece. And I don't think he would give you a straight answer himself. He would just say, I just wanted to. That's the type of answer you get.
Yeah.
Or I'm old enough now to live alone. And I think that was the biggest part for my mother at least to kind of say, yeah, he's independent now, you know?
It's great to see his growth in such a short space of time.
Yeah, and funny thing is, like, I'd be probably the most further away from it, obviously living over here as well. But like, you can see the changes even when I go home and stuff, go down and see my friends locally and stuff. Yeah, he's very much in his own routine, whereas before the members of family are really following his routine to make sure everything is set up for him to go about his day and his week and stuff. So now it's very much, yeah, if you see him, he's probably doing something in relation to what his week looks like now.
Wow. And when was he diagnosed? How long did you guys know?
Good question. I would guess, and it's only a guess, probably when he's maybe 6 or 7 years of age. Might have been sooner. I don't know the details of it, but obviously it's something that we're aware of from family for a number of years.
Yeah.
Obviously, when it came to the integration into, we'll say, primary level education, and as his peers and stuff would grow older and progress up the classes, it became more apparent. And thankfully enough, the education system then kind of feeds in to support people on that particular spectrum or neurodivergent category. And the word category I love and hate in different perspectives. And then it's kind of how do you manage it at what stage and what age. So obviously then when secondary level of education came in, what happens then? What stream do you go with? Do you go the normal standard route and see how the coping mechanisms of somebody in that particular position copes? Or do you go the more standard route of into that level of special education and see how they thrive in an environment that's more catered for them? Now, what we did at the time is we went route one, option one. We went the second level route to see how he would manage that change and manage the complexities of moving from primary level into the teenage environment. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. And we found out quite quickly that just too much, too quick.
Yeah.
And it was kind of said, look, we made a mistake. Let's go down that route of special education, vertical of education for the second level years.
And it's amazing you had that support then. There was actually two parts of that story that I really connected with. The first was him going to Dubai. For me, it was actually when I moved to Qatar, and everybody said to me, "But you don't know anyone there. You don't know anything about it, really." And I had just made a decision a couple of months earlier that I was going. I needed to go, and where that came from, why, I have a few reasons why, but I'm not 100% sure. But I remember getting on the plane. Obviously, I was going to miss everyone, but I was ready. There was no, what am I doing? I landed, and from the moment I got there, I embraced it. And as you were talking, I was thinking, well, why? What was it? And for me, it was that diversity. So many different cultures, so many different people, so many different places and things. You realize that the world is so much bigger than you and that little small surrounding. And because I knew no one, I could actually start to be me. And that was the first time, I think, in my life that, I'm still working on that, but that I was able to go, you know what, I can be anyone I want to be now. So without judgment, or maybe there will be, but they won't be someone who are close to me at that time. And I'll build a network based on who align with me. So yeah, that it never connected with me before. That's probably the real start of my journey.
And even on that, like speaking from my own perspective on that, my trigger moment, I think it was when I was 21st, and my aunt was living there at the time to go to South Africa for my 21st. Haven't really done majorly international holidays before that, mostly around Europe. Went to South Africa for my 21st, done Zimbabwe and Botswana. And it was weird, it's just like you come from a small village in Ireland to see parts of the world you just only ever see in the television.
Yeah.
And what it does is it creates that appetite in the back of your head where you're like, I like the flavour of that particular food I ate. I want a bit more of it. So funny enough, came back after that particular trip. I'm like, I now have this itch, this appetite, this curiosity to see what else is out there. So like yourself, rather than have the support around me doing that first big trip back in 2013, I'm like, you know what? Finished my second year of college. Let me try something else, but this time do it by myself. So I moved to California for the summer doing those J1 summers.
Yeah.
And I remember going up to the student union in Waterford where I was studying. And I went up to the people who were over the company that done these J1 visas and said, I want to go to America. And they kind of looked at me as if I had two heads and said, what do you mean? I want to do a J1 for the summer in the US. I said, okay, where do you want to go? No idea. And he still looked at me as if I had two heads and said, have you not thought about it? I said, no, where's the best place that people go to from your experience? California. Cool, let's book it. And they still kind of, as in now, yeah, let's book it. So I moved to California a month later. And funny enough, I had 2 nights booked in a hotel and it was kind of sink or swim after that.
Yeah.
But then when I landed on the ground in LAX, in the airport in LA, how do I get to the airport? Or how do I get from the airport to the hotel? How much is it going to cost? I have all this cash in my pocket. I don't know if I'm going to get scammed or whatnot. And it's that sink or swim independence where like, well, you've made this step to go out of your comfort zone, get out of your small little circle. You're in a bigger circle now. You're a smaller fish in a bigger pond. What are you going to do? And funny enough, one thing led to another, probably similar to yourself. And you're like, I really like this. I've been traveling ever since most years. So it's funny how we all have those little light bulb moments and that little appetite, or as I'm kind of considering with this stage, that motivation lights up in the back of your head. And that motivation creates that hungry need to try and explore a bit more.
It's incredible, isn't it? And anybody who decides not to do it, well, that's absolutely fine too. But whatever it is at that point in your life that you just go, nope, this isn't for me anymore. And I'm very like that. Very just when I decide that's it, there's no going back. But also the schooling bit. So for me, like this is where it clicked with me. For me, primary school, I wouldn't, let's say, pay attention to the whole class. I just couldn't. It wasn't for me. I needed, I guess, reading supports back then. But when I went to secondary, that's where I really struggled. And it just got to a point of what is the point? Because I'm not able to take anything in. I go home, I don't know what to do. And so I'm sitting there. So it was got to a point of you just don't bother anymore, because you bother, you don't do great. You don't even know where to start. And
So would you say, Máire, you were lost during that period?
very lost. Yeah, my teenage years for me were so challenging. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, it's funny because I think, again, referencing that light bulb moment, until you find that light bulb on the map where you're quite lost in, it then gives you that direction of travel.
True. It's a very good point.
Mm.
Yeah, because
You stumble about until you find it.
yeah.
And funny on your point there, like you mentioned secondary level. Secondary level was a bit of a disaster for me too, in that I just had no interest in it. I didn't see the point in it. I'm like, cool, my only aim was to go to college. And even at that, I actually only had this conversation about a week ago with my aunt. And like, yeah, I used to be a joker and a messer, and I still am today. But I remember it was last week in secondary school, and all my friends were sat around the assembly in the school. And somebody brought up the topic is, who do you think is going to be the first to drop out of college? And unanimously, they all pointed at, in this case, me. I remember looking, I goes, is that, if that's the perception I'm given, I must be more foolish than I thought. And for me, from an educational standpoint, it lit a fire in me. And ever since then, I went on to do the 4 years in Waterford studying, got offered 3 scholarships, 2 of which at master's level. I'm like, maybe that was the little spark I needed from the educational standpoint, regardless of the travel that kicked in during that period as well. So it's probably similar to you, is once you find that foot and that ground and that motivation, that spark,
Yeah.
you're like, it makes sense now.
Absolutely. And when it came to me, university level, because I could learn at my own pace, or because I could, watch lectures online if I needed, that made all the difference to me. I could stop, start, I could do my own research, I could listen. So that's what I needed. And had I had that, then maybe my journey would have been different. There was still the sensory overload of big classrooms. Like, I'd gone from a small country school to a very big town school, and that was the only option then. So yeah, it was difficult.
And even because even as we chat there seems to be similarities in that too much structure tends to kill our ability to be independent.
Yes.
And similarly to you and I, with the secondary school structure of, you've got your 6 years, you need to do this course, this subject every day for that period of time, up until the point you do this summer exam, and that's it, it's done. Whereby similar to you is, when I got to college, I used to love going to the college restaurant, have my bit to eat while living away from home, then going back doing a bit of study, and then going doing a bit of work in the evening in terms of work to get cash in my pockets. That independence of, do you know what? I've got my goal. I can get to that goal, do my own thing, satisfy my own needs in terms of the social aspect, the financial aspect, the independence aspect, the educational aspect, to still get that college degree. Whereas secondary school was very much, here's your structure, here's your verticals to get there, this is your timeline to do it, and that's it, pass or fail.
Absolutely. It's the autonomy to kind of make them decisions and say, I'm my own person and this is how I do it. Like, even when you decide when you're going to study, how it works for you, it's not like I'm after taking a school bus into school that's very overwhelming and I'm burned out from that as it is. And then I'm in there with chaos. And it was chaos. To then come home on the same school bus where at one stage it was full of smoke as well, back then when you could smoke on it.
Yeah.
And, there was just, and then to come home, and now because you've masked all day and you're socially burned out, now you should study. Whereas, yeah, just like you said, that ability to just manage your time to suit you. Are there any assumptions that you've learned through growing up with a brother who's neurodivergent, through having friends who are neurodivergent, or do you feel
Yeah,
that because he was young?
I think, again, it's not, you don't realize it at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the word assumptions. Assumptions and capability. You assume they're not capable of doing something, is the sentence I would summarize it as. And with that, then, again, same as working in HR, if you assume somebody can't do it, well, why are they there? And that's the thing that creeps into the workforce that I see nowadays. We're in a workplace nowadays whereby if we assume people can't do something, you nearly talk about termination before you talk about improvement. And unfortunately, that stereotype lies in the medical space of neurodivergent people is if we assume they can't do something or are not capable of doing something, we put them in the slow lane if it's a road.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, then we restrict their ability to actually learn, develop, and understand what their key skills are. So, for example, probably you and I similarly, concentration isn't always our strongest strength. Whereas when you look at the profiling and the stereotyping of somebody with autism, structure, routine, and focus, if the motivation is right, is something the smartest person in the world would struggle to um, to marry or merit in terms of ability. For example, something I love and hate is Excel. Somebody on the spectrum, again it gets mentioned today, if they've got the grounding and the foundations laid there, could gobble that up, could eat it because it's process, it's rinse and repeat, and that type of job and role profile would suit them down to the ground. Whereas if it was me, I wouldn't even last 6 months in the job. I'd fail, and that word fail comes in rather than improve. And unfortunately, we fall into that trap of do people have enough time nowadays to actually help somebody who's perceived to be in the slow lane and get them up even to the mid lane without going even considering the fast lane? Because funny enough, if you give them the right environment and the role profile suits their needs and abilities and capabilities, as I mentioned, you could actually end up having a top performer in that particular space.
Mm-hmm.
But do we create ourselves too much of a busy life and environment, workplace, or even home environment to actually realize and open and, I suppose, look into those capabilities?
Wow, that's really interesting. You know, when you're talking about Excels, to me is I instantly feel anxious. I'm like, oh, good. Where you're talking about the ADHD and the autism, so like the ADHD, my attention depends on what the topic is because then I go hyper focus. The task can be done very very quick, and that the autism is all down to my special interest. So I cannot guide my brain to do something that it just does not want to do. I can deep dive into neurodivergence and the impact on women and menstrual cycles or whatever. I can full day, 12 hours, no problem. But you ask me to go and do an Excel sheet, it will be painful. The thought of it anyway. And I know learning about myself, that rinse and repeat, I was talking on the podcast the other day about like 3 books I would just repetitively read to my daughter. But it's the same with foods. And the foods isn't, for me, texture wise, it's the safety of knowing what's next. So I could eat the same meal 3 times a day for a week, no problem. It's not an issue for me. So it's all about that structure, that routine, and creative speaking. Like if you ask me to paint a picture, I will paint you either a bumblebee with a flower. Probably won't paint it. I'll doodle it, and every time I doodle, I do the same thing: a bumblebee, a flower, maybe a sun. I might do a star somewhere. Conflicts. It's night day anyway.
Yeah.
Because I can do them and I'm comfortable doing them and it's great. You ask me to paint a picture, there'll probably be a field, there'll be some flowers, there'll be them birds in the distance, which are like the M with the black, there'll be the sun, and there might be a bush over here. And it would be the same every time. I cannot think of another picture to draw.
So it's your default setting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when it comes to a particular task, your particular default is Bumblebee.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. Interesting.
Always back to that. And that's reassurance. If I'm with someone, I'm talking. If I'm doodling, I can hear so much more of what they're saying because my attention is focused on that. So I'm physically at something, and I can hear and retain the information much better, even when the sensory issues are around me. So the audible is sometimes very challenging for me. If I can just focus my attention on that, I can take in what you're saying much more.
Well, I didn't actually realise that was the case, that you need something to fidget with in
Yes,
order to have that
ability.
ability, but it takes off the initial buzz of the audio and sensory issues
Yeah,
because it's focused, and then it's like, cool, I can understand what you're saying.
yeah, yeah. So teachers listening in classroom, let the child click the pen.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm
Repetitive.
desperate for fidgeting as well, so maybe
Yeah.
something I need to look at myself and might ask my colleagues who sit beside me.
Like as we're sitting here, I'm stimming, so I'm either doing this with my hands, or I'll have like a hair bobbin that I'm pulling and pressing and pulling and pressing.
So I purposely before this left this over here because I will play with this morning, noon, and night. And also, I have this bracelet I got, and I said I'm not bringing this near this podcast today because I know I will be flicking it in the background when you can't see me.
Yeah, but that's okay. And that's, that's what because often I go to things and I'll have one of my daughter's hair bobbins and they're very, bright out there. You would know that it doesn't match what I'm wearing but I pull on it. One, it's a reminder to me that why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't know her neurotype, but I don't want her growing up in a world full stop that was the same as I grew up in. So that's a reminder and it keeps me grounded. But what you're saying there is I want people to be able to stim if they need to, because you're far more productive, you're far more grounded. It's okay. Whether it's large stimming, whether it's not as obvious. Either way, that should be completely okay.
But the main thing is somebody has enough grounding and awareness of themselves that they can address what they need to do. So, i.e., if I have a fidget problem, I know what I need to do. I need to fidget. Does it allow me to be productive and work and talk and socialize? Yes, 10 out of 10.
It's absolutely fine. And the only person who has a problem, if it's the other person who doesn't want to hear the clicking pen, it's your problem. Deal with that.
Yeah.
It's not mine. You can move away from me. Or we can find another alternative that I'll have a popper instead of a clicker or whatever it is. But I remember listening to a podcast in Ireland. Actually, it's my old clinical supervisor spoke, and it's absolutely fantastic for anyone who might self-diagnose or is ADHD. And it is all around acceptance. But they talk about, he said, people are always writing in because it's a video podcast, and they say, I can't remember the guy's name. Would he stop bouncing his leg all the time? It's so distracting. And my clinical supervisor said, well, and I'll name him Enda Murphy. And he said, but what's that? That's their problem, not yours. You're relaxing yourself. You're calming yourself. So if they have a problem, they can just turn the video off and listen.
Yeah.
It's not your issue. So yeah, I think that's my big aim, is to just be you and normalize being you and not having to present yourself in a certain way to the world.
Exactly as you mentioned there, like it's not the approach of somebody trying to adjust themselves to be calm and be engaged.
Yeah.
It's the awareness of others that somebody needs to do that in order to be engaged.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be penalized as a result of that. They shouldn't be called out as a result of that. It should be, that's Steve's little quirk, so why not?
In class doodling when I'm supposed to be looking at the teacher what they're doing, but I'm actually taking the information better if I'm just looking down and doodling.
Yeah. Look, we all have our ways, our quirks, what works and what doesn't work for us.
Yeah. And we find them in life. And I think as long as they don't hugely impact it, I mean, navigating a relationship can be a bit tricky when we all try to learn each other's quirks, because there's the you in the relationship who's not the real you, and then when that cripples out into...
What's the phrase? If you want to get to know me, come live with me.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's where you see all of that at its most natural and raw state.
Yeah.
But also equally, being biased now and speaking about HR is, think about when you start a new job.
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing there? Your approach got you into the job, but it's your awareness in the workplace that'll help you excel in the job.
Yeah.
So for me, looking at it is, if you know somebody has that twitch or that quirk, if you're aware of that and you can help them thrive on top of that, their overall approach is going to be improved as well. So you've got the two A's of approach and awareness improved because somebody's actually cognizant of somebody's needs in order to be able to perform.
Yeah. And how do you think the hiring process could assist there? So this person, this CV is exceptional.
Yeah. I'll walk you through a past experience. So was hiring for a particular position on a previous HR team I was on. And we were there going through all of the CVs. As you know, they come in their hundreds, which is a good thing. And we're like, cool, we need a junior profile to do a particular job that's talent related in terms of underground social skills, but also project based. You build that picture in your head of what good looks like in that role and that profile. So I think it was the second person we were interviewing. And I'm thinking in my head, as they're presenting their findings of this case study we gave them, culture fit, tick. Ability and awareness around the topic and the brief, tick. Presenting all the findings and objectives of the brief, tick. Then at the end, the open-endedness of the interview process came in. Do you have any questions for us? And the particular person mentioned is, they asked one or two questions, quite good questions, and they mentioned, yeah, one of my weaknesses is, which is a very good awareness piece to ask somebody during an interview, is, what's your weakness? Goes, well, I've ADHD, so sometimes I struggle with concentration. The person was like, no issues at all. We all have our quirks, to use the word again, and we all have our flaws and our strong points. Fine, interview finished. Went back into the group. This was a call. There was 3 of us on it, all quite senior. And for me, I said, green light. Fits everything we need. And one of the main things you really look for in that type of role is the cultural fit and the personality.
Yeah.
And we saw the professional ability as well in terms of absolutely nailed the briefing. We went around the table of 3 of us, and the most senior person on the call said, absolutely not. So you take that pause and you're waiting for the why. And the why was simple. They have ADHD. They couldn't concentrate. They couldn't keep up with our pace. Now, again, it created debate rather than discussion.
Mm.
And in the end, 2 overpowered 1. And we said, cool. If that's our decision, majority rules, I don't agree, we'll move on. Funnily enough, we interviewed another 3, if not 4 people after that. None of them passed. For all ability of not being able to do the project, not completing the brief, not being the right personality for the role. So basically, to summarize, that person didn't get the role because they disclosed their awareness, which was perceived as a weakness and an inability to do the job, even though they're the standout in terms of scoring, because of the fact that they disclosed the idea that they had ADHD.
And what would you say all they needed to do when, let's say, that candidate got the job? What would have been put in place there to make
Well,
sure?
not in going by the culture of the company in terms of the selection process,
Yeah.
in terms of it would have been perceived and it would have been labelled as that person on the HR team as ADHD. They would have been nearly have an asterisk beside their head as they walk around the office saying, aware, be aware, be aware. But honestly, the quality of what was presented that day, the quality of the findings was genuinely 30% at least better than the rest of the candidates, if I was to quantify it.
I'm impressed that they even got that far because I always say, with me, you ask me a question, I will start answering it, and God knows where I'll end up.
But the funny thing is, you mentioned that in terms of going away from that structure of a question that the interviewer is looking for. Like they have the methodology STAR for interviewers, which is fine, it's great in essence. But funny enough, the person who disclosed the fact that they had ADHD answered everything line item by line item on a verbal basis, not as per the text on the PowerPoint presentation or the findings, but verbatim. So has that person just lost out on a job opportunity because they're honest?
Yeah. So it's discrimination, really, and without even giving an opportunity to see them at work. Does it impact at all? Have you been able to manage? Because I think when you're aware, like I'm aware of most. I mean, I think life's ongoing. Most of the areas I struggle with and how to protect myself, how to manage my day, not to overdo social outings. What is it I need? So I'm responsible for managing that and then ask for supports where I need and being very honest about them. And I know I'm in a position where, I work for the hardest, my husband always says, boss in the world, myself, who doesn't take much time off. But I'm fortunate to do that. I've listened or interviewed some amazing leaders who have just told me how they just ask, what do you need? And it's all around supports. And that's for anyone, no matter your neurotype. Like, we all don't know every aspect of a job. We all need support in learning it. So, it is just, where do we put supports in? Who needs a support here? Who needs a support here? Who's an expert in this area? Okay, there you go. And I'm an expert in this, so I'll take this load of the work. Whatever that is, it's just about supports. It's support on the interview. Do I do better on a recorded interview? Am I better, on a Zoom, or am I better face to face? Where am I more comfortable to present what I actually really can do?
And that's the thing, like, if we keep labeling people and penalising people for that, is it going to get to the extent that people have to apologise for getting sick?
Yeah.
If you have a flu, you have to apologise and say, I'm so sorry, I'm after coming down with this. It's completely out of my control. Penalise me? Like, where does it stop? Whereas the other side of it is, would you not turn it into an opportunity? Somebody who's got a really strong skill set with particular areas, like we'll use Excel again, or we'll use process. Well, why not use that to the benefit of you, the company, and the person? It just makes more sense rather than trying to, again, I'll use the word categorize people, and then you've stereotyped them as a result, and you've got that perception which is wrongly aligned to them.
I mean, you could have an average person doing an average job in all 5 areas, or you could have exceptional people in them areas and being higher, like, much more productive. So yeah, it's hopefully something we'll look at. Do you feel it's something now you can monitor when you're in the interview process, or with staff that you have at the moment?
Yeah, for example, in my current workplace, genuinely, it's not about what they disclose in terms of mental capacity, mental ability. Like, I done an interview this morning, for example, and the one thing we say, and it's very stereotypical to today's culture and kind of buzzwords, is
Yeah.
right cultural fit. Regardless if, number one, they fit the profile of what we want from a cultural perspective, you can nearly say that's 50% of the job requirements at the minute. Then the other 50% you could break down onto ability, competence, confidence to do the role. There's no remit in our job design when it comes to interview structures that if they've got an incapacity, as it can sometimes be called, that it's a no. It's not a yes no thing. If they're the right fit, the right person, the right personality, that's the main thing.
Wow.
It's like it likes when you mentioned leadership there. When it comes to me doing leadership coaching, for example, you might have the biggest stereotypical, let's say, Wall Street investment broker who's got slick back hair, got as much confidence could fill the Burj Khalifa. And if you ask them one question and they say yes, there's a bigger issue than somebody who's neurodivergent. If you ask them the question is, are you perfect? They say yes. That's a million times a bigger problem than somebody who says, I've got ADHD or I've got a learning capability issue. And it's not even an issue. It's basically an opportunity to try and find something that can work for them. And that's the thing. Give me somebody who perceive themselves as on the spectrum or who's aware enough and confident enough to say, I have this, than somebody who's got too much ego and can't take feedback, can't see the people that create and organize a workforce. There's no difference.
And when you say that, because I mean, we're not in any area, and neurodivergent or not, we all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses, and I think that's important. Like, some of us are natural runners, some of us just aren't. Like, there's just them natural capabilities that when you go back to that time when you were a child, they were the things you loved doing. Like, that's where you got. Like, for me, I used to dust rocks. I loved Jurassic Park. And I used to pretend I was trying to find dinosaurs. And still to this day, that brings me so much joy. I'm not very artistic, as we know, but I'm good at doing them sort of dusting rocks. So if anyone needs that skill set, let me know. But what I mean is, there's things that you're just born with. You go in that direction. I watch my daughter playing now. She's a climber. She's boisterous. She loves to move her body. But I know other children who don't, male, female, and that's she's just probably always going to be like that, whatever she does.
It's the same word we mentioned earlier on. That's their default. That's what they default on. When it comes to playing at that particular age of your life, it was rocks. Same with your daughter. She's a mover. She jumps around. She gets her energy from that. Her comfort zone into that. For me, it can be sitting down with a bit of structure every so often, or it could be a particular hobby like Man United or something. That's my comfort zone. Hasn't changed. I'm quite neurodivergent, probably autistic towards that in terms of I plan my week around the games. But that's my comfort zone. It
Yeah,
might be someone's comfort zone to de-stress by going to the gym. For me, it's watching Man United because it probably causes much stress and stress relief at the same time for me. So again, everyone has their little perks of what works for them.
yeah,
The genuine thing, and it's a privilege for those who have found it, is understanding what it is. Because as you mentioned earlier on, is that map is quite dark until you find the light in it. And it
yes.
can take a long time. If it's a game of snakes and ladders, a lot of people might have a lot of snakes until they find those ladders, until they hit that number 100 at the end of the game. But it can be a long road for others and can be shorter for others as well.
And this might be because you've tapped on that earlier, and it shows to me a lot of emotional intelligence and empathy. Would you say that your journey at times was a bit darker?
Absolutely. Like, the best way to describe it is this. If I was lucky or unlucky, you could call it, to have a very clean trajectory of this in life, there's probably one thing I would definitely have is complacency. Another thing I definitely have is a lack of people empathy and understanding. And what I probably have as well is a very less knowledgeable mind of how the world works in terms of culture and people and awareness. And in essence, then that awareness comes back over to my approach. How do I approach things in relation to work? How do I approach things in relation to life? All of those peaks and troughs, the ladders and snakes, are pieces that build up your own jigsaw if you want until you get that picture or light bulb moment.
Wow, that's very powerful. Thank you for sharing.
No problem.
I appreciate the vulnerability.
It's good. Look, we all have them. It
Yeah,
depends how we portray them.
yeah, yeah. And do you feel now today that them darknesses have left?
Well, no, I would use the word again, complacency. I'd be complacent if I thought that because, again, I'm 32, nearly 33. I hope I'm not at my midlife crisis yet. I hope there's a lot more to go. So I'm expecting more. I'm just hoping, as I mentioned, I'm a lot more aware and mature now of, do you know what, if you have a bad day, a bad week,
Yeah.
or you have a turbulent time in your life, you can address it, you can absorb it, but if you can deal with it or not, that's the hard part. So it depends, and it's situational and scenario driven. So to answer your question is no, I won't say I'm over it because I guarantee there'll be more to come. But am I ready for it? No. I'm aware it's happening. Yes. Do I have an approach in place that I can use? Yes. Will it be the right approach? Who knows?
It's back to awareness there, though, that the fact that when you're aware that we'll use darkness because that's the phrase you use. Um, we're aware of what that looks like, what that feels like. We're aware that there is another side to it. Um, and for me, it's about learning self compassion. That's been the biggest struggle for me is trying, and you used the word perfect earlier, to be perceived to the outside world as perfect, and perhaps to others in certain ways I might seem like I come across that way, but internally I am broken in so many ways. And I always will be, and that's okay. I'm back to my clinical supervisor. He created this thing called the Raggy Dolls. I don't know if you remember the TV show The Raggy Dolls.
No,
Broken
I'm,
Bin.
think, I'm thinking of Bosco, the old TV show, but not the Raggy Dolls.
Well, yeah, there's the Raggy Dolls there too, yeah. But
Okay.
it's back to that there are pieces of me that might be seen broken, and to me always felt broken. But when I'm able to show self compassion and self awareness, I'll still have them hard days, them hard moments, and go into that sort of victim mentality. But I'm better able to pull myself out of it these days much quicker and realize, it's really hard what you feel right now. That is really challenging, and it will pass and it will be okay. And for me, them moments sometimes are the biggest part of growth in me.
Yeah, and you're right in terms of Again, speaking about a more immature stage of my life, a younger years, whereby that vortex, as you're kind of describing what I'm seeing, you get so whipped around in it you can't see. It's full of noise, it's loud, and it's just horrible to be in. It's dark. There's things hitting off you. You don't know where to stop or where to defend yourself. But the thing is, once you've experienced those vortexes over time, your awareness of it is, well, it's not going to do anything to me. It's creating noise. Okay, can I deal with noise? Yes. Okay. Then you learn the approach. What's my approach to step out of the vortex and then look back at the vortex and say, well, it's only just a gust of wind,
Yes, yes,
you
yes.
know? And then you're like, okay, what did I learn from that? It's a gust of wind. It creates a lot of noise. It's dark. It hits me with little bits of, I don't know, debris. Do I know how to get out of it? Yes. Push it aside. Wait for the next vortex to come along.
Yeah. And why did I get to that place? Was there self-care, or was there something I haven't dealt with or fully dealt with? Like, because the triggers are always usually around the same underlying issues. So it's, have you fully processed that, dealt with that? So yeah, wow. Um you are, I would say anyone who works under you is very fortunate.
Or unfortunate if you can understand me.
Oh, you have a great understanding of the human mind, the emotional mind, the logical mind, and it's not, that's not always easy to get your grasp around, and you articulate so well. So yeah, I think examples like that are really beneficial.
Yeah, it's always easier to kind of picture something, be it good or bad, to kind of build an understanding.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, maybe you'll be a motivational speaker someday.
I have to work on the accent first.
Ah, that could be part of the appeal, you know.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe
Yeah,
that's the USB.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, So, where do you think, with the back to HR and your motivational speaking in the future, where you're going to encourage people to look at policies, where do you think maybe the gaps in policies are for neurodivergent individuals?
I would say, I actually mentioned the point a few minutes ago. Pick the profile fit first in terms of if, and as you see in LinkedIn, every person, every company now portrays they have these values.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at them, and you don't have to go through too many companies, many of the company values you see on LinkedIn around the world today are nearly all the same. They're somewhat similar. They all have their own little nuances and mean different things to different companies. But it's practice what you preach when it comes to those values. Because I'm sure, I'd say 99% sure, those company values you see across the globe and across LinkedIn are all around the kind of people component of any organization. If not, I don't know how they're a company. And if you don't put the person in front of the policy, in front of the procedure, and well in front of any bias you may have, you're never going to be able to fix that particular issue. Now, thankfully, as I mentioned earlier on, I haven't seen it too much in the workplace, but a policy for me should be part of the strategy. And the strategy should be, if we want to be a good workplace for people to work, thrive, develop, or hire to retire as the HR term goes, we need to set it up in the right way. And setting it up in the right way is having the right direction and philosophy of doing that. So let's pick the profile over the person's specifics. And in this case, the person's specifics when it comes to the mental ability. You see it when it comes to job applications today. People can get ruled out over the most basic things when it comes to these applicant tracking systems. It could be, if you go into gender, and I'll keep it very light on the gender pieces, man or woman.
Yeah.
That particular company might say, we need a woman for this job. And HR, for example, is highly driven on ratio towards women. But imagine going through an application process and getting ruled out of a job based on their gender.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same type of yes no answer to say, are you neurodivergent? If yes, you don't even pass to the next stage of where the recruiter goes and looks at your profile because of that particular existence in someone's makeup. Again, the same as the example I mentioned earlier on is if we had a policy in place that it's profile over mentality or mental neurodivergent ability, whatever you want to label it as, well, that person would have been in the job today, probably still, because they genuinely had that ability to thrive. and would have done a very good job, probably would have promoted by now. But it's the fact that there was no structure, no policy, no guidance in place that allowed that person to get the green light from the three people on that panel.
It's a lack of understanding, isn't it? It's ignorance and
Ignorance,
you
yeah, that's the
know,
best word.
not wanting to learn more or understand more. Say, you know what, let's even let me think this one over. Maybe I need to do a bit of understand, what ADHD looks like. Maybe I need a further interview with this person of where them weaknesses might impact them, because saying ADHD is very generic. It's
Mm.
not. I mean, it may not impact them in the working world at all. They could absolutely thrive because they have this routine built in that suits them. You don't know until you ask the nuances. Like, we're all so unique as humans. Doesn't matter.
Again, you're dead right. So think about it like this. Having had a retail background, retail is a job that has a high level of complaints, be it from the customers or the employees that work in it. If I focus on the employees working in it, it can come across as mundane. Every day I go to the stock room, bring the stock onto the floor, and I put it on the shelves, and I deal with customers. There's the four main key components of it. It's only four. Somebody who's on that spectrum, those four things, probably less around the people and customer interactions piece, but 3 out of 4, that's 75%, are something that suits their skill sets, suits their comfort zones. And guess what? They will very rarely miss work and very rarely leave a job on those bases. And retail has a very high turnover at that particular job profile. If a retailer looked at it from that perspective, well, they'd save themselves a lot of money from a HR standpoint when it comes to recruitment, employee turnover. I would definitely say employee complaints as well, because people get fed up doing those four things, which is the core element of that job profile. They get frustrated, they want more money, they want progress, they don't have the management structures in place to move up into management, they leave. Rinse and repeat. That same little phrase again. Whereas, again, use my brother as the example. Comes in to that retail work he works in, does his job, takes his 15-minute break based on the hours he works that particular day, clocks out that evening, goes home, very little complaints. The most he'll mention is a funny customer that came in terms of an incident, if you want to call it that. Has his dinner, probably plays the PlayStation, goes to bed, rinse and repeat. When the weekend comes along, what happens then? The social butterfly element of the week kicks in, and it's like, I get to go down to the pub, do the same routine in the pub, sit in the same spot, the same drink, leave at the same time, relaxes on a Sunday, rinse and repeat the next week. Now imagine from a HR point, and probably indeed in your profession as well, Máire, having somebody who has that level of routine driven appreciation, because it is appreciation, doesn't want to become a talker in terms of I hate my job, I'm doing the same thing day in, day out, and just appreciates the small things in life. As I'm sure if we look around us now, even in the room, we have so many devices and things that create noise. And what happens is it builds our awareness to a level of frustration because we get too much noise, too much audible insensorship nearly. And we're like, God, I'm happy myself. Go onto Instagram, see these people who are modeled to look like perfection. But again, the word, again, perfect doesn't really exist in essence. Whereas we've created so much noise around ourselves to hit that North Star, which doesn't really exist. Whereas people, again, like my brother and other people in that spectrum, just come in, have a nice, smooth life, no real peaks, no real troughs, but are very content with that level and that speed lane, if you want, again, of life.
That's really fascinating that I really was just so engrossed there, because it had me thinking, that the happiest I always thought I'd probably be is just working in like a bit of a bakery, bit of a coffee shop, not too many customers, chit chat, and that kind of repetitive behavior, because there's no stress involved in that. Obviously, I'm saying quiet. There's it's not too busy. The acoustics would have to be right. The place, but it would be cozy, and it's that's the joy in everything. And I think that's what we lose. And we're seeking something bigger and greater when in fact it's within you. If you take that opportunity, that I think it's brave to actually go and say, you know what, the problem's in me that I'm feeling. It's not the outside of the world. The next car or the next promotion or the next whatever I'm going to have is going to bring that happiness and joy. No, it's slowing down and it's saying, well, what's going on in here? Why do you need all these external things? Like for me, the biggest joy I get is taking my dog for a walk, listening to the birds, and or walking with my daughter. I speak about this a lot, and she sees a little bug and I'm on the floor and I'm looking at the bug with her, and it brings me back, because back at childhood, that's what joy was. It was simple life, smelling the flowers, watching the birds, and it is
Innocence and
simplicity.
simplicity.
It's not
Yeah.
the phone pinging. It's not, the whatever needs on the TV. Absolutely not. It's them conversations, that interaction. It brings us so much joy. And that we need to get back to all them devices. Like, whoa.
I know, honestly, it's scary. Like, God forbid the days like when I was growing up. Like, I should mention this again this week. Like, our school tours back home in Ireland was to walk up a mountain. God forbid you ask a child today to walk up a mountain or even go on a nature walk. Like, I mean, they probably call Child Protective Services. Like, genuinely. Like, what are you doing to me?
Yeah,
So, like, we've come so far from a technology point of view, but at the same time, it's creating more noise.
it is.
And we're now become more diluted as a result of this noise. And now we're trying to profile ourselves again, using that word, against these people who are online and superficial.
Yeah,
Again, especially living in Dubai with that,
yeah.
like, you know what it's like. I call it Instagram. And it is that. But funny enough, you watch a lot of these influencers, especially as they walk around Dubai Marina here, they have a very much normal life like the rest of us. When it's not a phone that's looking at them in the face, it's very much, hey, this is me. And God forbid we don't have enough of that nowadays.
No, yeah. Be me. Be the flawed, authentic me, as opposed, like, and when we talk about that, I actually have to say I feel sorry for people who feel that they've got to do that, because you'll know as well as me from watching it, that photo's not one photo. That photo's probably taken an hour of the poor boyfriend or the poor friend who's not interested and just wants to hang out as a friend, of that person posing, rechecking the photos to make sure they're right because of their own inner pain and anguish, that they expect that a couple of likes or however many amount of likes will make them feel better, and it will in an instant, but that dopamine hit will drop, and then it's the next picture, the next reel, oh, someone else is getting more likes, why am I.
But think about it like this: we use the picture earlier on as the vortex. That's their vortex,
Yeah, yeah, so
and their awareness of that they're in that vortex, and it's so consistent because of the nature of social media today. It's fast, it's rapid. You need to trend, because if you don't trend, that vortex becomes bigger, becomes noisier, becomes darker, and then nearly in today's world, you fail to exist
yeah, yeah.
if you don't get in that trend. So
Many
again,
actual humans are left? Like, how many of really they'd sit and have a conversation, and we're not watching the phone ping up, or we're just sitting there across from each other and enjoying company.
and that's the thing, and I go back to it again, speaking about HR and speaking about recruitment and the kind of categorization we have in our head. Again, going back to that interview I had this morning, is get the profile right first. If you get the profile, the personality right, then you're not going to go into a room or go for lunch with somebody who's going to be like this, or
Yeah,
you're kind of scratching your head saying,
yeah,
are we going to talk? So again, those types of disconnect, be it at an organization or company professional level, and then the personal side of things, relationship side of things, family, your normal social being, there's a huge disconnect when you don't get those things aligned.
I was just thinking as you were talking, it must be fantastic in the dating scene. No, yes, no, yes, no.
Yeah, again, I'll do this. That trajectory isn't that easy in the day, and see when it comes to that. You could definitely say it's the vortex, it's the ups and downs and everything in between. Or the doodle board, as you mentioned, you could be drawing your bumblebees on Bumble.
Yes.
Not that easy.
Wow, wow. It's the face to face. I'm I always say I'm lucky, or I feel very lucky that I never had to go down the dating app route. I've lived it through my friends, but thankfully, naturally, I've always met the people in my life.
You're
Um,
lucky. I've went through those years of swiping, and thankfully I'm now off it, hopefully forever. So again, it's both a privilege and a plague at the best of times.
and you might just bump into that person someday, and that's
Funny
that.
enough, I did meet somebody. I met somebody in person without swiping left or right, or right.
There you go, and that's where happiness is, and I think that's where authenticity. And not to say I know there's been very successful relationships, but like that's back down to just being a human and connecting,
It's the hello in person rather than the hello online.
and then in person it's nothing like.
It's not, but even funny enough, it's not even hello online because mostly you're there on your phone and you get a notification and you're like, this is your first interaction with that person. Funny enough, is your phone is telling you you've matched with somebody. It's not even you directly matching with them. It's the phone and the algorithm. So it's a bit computerized and artificial.
Very scary because it's like, well, do I know what I like myself or I don't? Because oh, you've told me I like this, so then I must like this. So
But
you're
even
disconnected.
it's funny you say that. So as these apps have grown and developed, and obviously there's more awareness around your personality type,
Yeah.
it now becomes a category on these apps. Like mine is ESTJ, and I'm like, so it does the algorithm tell me I need to match with ESTJ type people, or does it find me somewhere else on the Myers Briggs categorization of people and personalities? So I'm like, what does the computer tell you what you like? It's
Yeah.
not what my mind likes, or what my eyes like, or what my brain likes, or ultimately what I feel like. It's more
Yes.
like what the computer tells you like.
Wow. And that feeling, you kind of get that spark. Um I think it takes away from it when you, well, I don't know because I haven't experienced, but you have that interaction online and it's like, oh, we haven't had that first, like, oh, what's your name? Where are you from? Tell me, that's kind of gone.
But
Uh,
think about it in terms of the topics we spoke about earlier on. Imagine you're chatting to somebody online and everything's going very well on the person perspective. The conversation is good, the connection is there, and you were to meet them in person in a restaurant, and God forbid they were twitching this the whole way through it. Are they nervous for meeting you in person for the first time, or do they have a neurodivergent thing that this is them concentrating on you?
yeah.
And they're hearing everything you say and they're understanding it and the conversation is flowing. And thirdly, does that become the other person you met on that day? It's ick. They don't like the fact that they do this, but yet the conversation is completely fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it's funny enough how you can perceive people online and kind of see the text as the full person. But then again, when you see the full person and it's back to, if you want to get to know me, come live with me, you're like,
Mhm.
oh, not for me. And was the algorithm wrong that day? Why did I match with them?
Well, true. Because I don't know if it's about looks or it's a combination of
Mhm.
looks and personality, and then how authentic is that? I don't know. I assume that you have to complete a questionnaire. But just as you're speaking, I think when I was back dating, I might see a really attractive man across the bar and say, "Oh, hello." He could bore me to tears. And usually, the people I've met in my life, it's not that they're not handsome or they're not, but they mightn't just catch my eye as quick.
Mhm.
Straight, my husband definitely did if he's listening. But it was the humor. It was where I connected, and yeah, you can portray yourself so much on a device, but I think
Mhm.
that that moment where you're just like, oh, and you're getting better looking as I'm talking.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So think about it. You mentioned humor and kind of you have that natural ability to talk, but maybe we're talking wrong now in terms of maybe somebody with autism, that's easier for them
Absolutely, absolutely,
because it's structured, it's quiet,
yeah,
and it's visible to them.
yeah,
So maybe we're now being biased unintentionally based upon the conversation we're naturally flowing with,
yeah,
whereas it might genuinely suit people. Again, those who are more introverted by nature,
so true.
it's an easier approach for them to build their awareness on the other person. And again, the two A's come up as the two key components here for me on this is awareness and approach.
Wow, very very good. What advice would you give others on the path of exploring their neurodivergence if they've just recently found out or are self identified? Is there any advice you would give? I guess from a HR perspective and from someone who's, you have friends, you have a sibling.
Yeah, I think one thing for me, and I use it every so often in work and probably out of work as well, is hearing versus listening.
Hmm.
So you might ask a question to somebody, say, "Hey, do I fidget a lot?" And they might say yes. You probably listen to them, me fidgeting, doing this a lot, but are
Yeah.
you going to action it? And the answer is no. So for me, is if you're aware enough, if your step one is to build up the courage or confidence to ask somebody, what do you think my quirks are? Do I do anything that annoys you? Or that's something to just spot? Are you going to listen to that advice? Or are you going to hear it and actually action it?
Yeah.
Now, the action might be quite simple. And again, leaning back into technology is, do you go online and see it as a simple test? And if yes, you do this test that has a bit of verification behind it and it gives you, say, you might be somewhat on the spectrum. Whereas I reckon that at some point I must be, because I fidget a lot, I move around the seat a lot. I'm surprised I don't backflip sometimes when I'm on seats. But I'm like, surely to God, I'm somewhat on the spectrum. Do I have interest and curiosity to go and check it out further? Well, funny enough, yes. What I've done is probably about a month before we connected on LinkedIn, I went and I done like 3 different tests and I got the results and like overall it was a no, but there's a few little stems of you might have a bit of ADHD. You tend to float around topics and think, cool, it's not the end of the world. Funny enough, what I did, Máire, is I cut all the results and put them into ChatGPT and said, cool, here's the initial results I got. Give me some of the theoretical practices when it comes to these things on neurodivergent traits, is the best way to put it, and ask me some of these stereotypical questions that might happen in your practice to
Yeah.
see if there's any more fruit behind that. Again, after another layer of ChatGPT and theoretical practices around the subject matter, nothing really came up, but little small spurts of things came up. Like, well, do you know what? For me, it's an awareness piece. I'm more aware, I'm conscious that, yeah, I flick around in a chair. Yes, I fidget with things. Is it the end of the world? No. Does it impact my ability to perform in the workplace? No. Do my colleagues see it? Probably. I know a few months ago, probably about 6 months ago actually, when I'm sat in the office here, my colleague next to me goes, "You are some man to bounce your leg." Imagine I was bouncing around the chair, bouncing around the tables, it'd be worse. We had a laugh over it. It's not as if they're judging, it's just they're picking up on your quirks. So to really focus on your question is, if you feel you might be doing something that's a bit out of normal, ask somebody you trust. Just say, hey, what do you think? Am I onto something here? If it's a no, cool. I might ask somebody else, get a different perspective. And funny enough, I brought up something that's similar in topics. When I moved back from New York, about 5 or 6 years, sorry, 6 or 7 years ago, moved back to Ireland, I got a job in Ireland. And in the morning, I'd go for my coffee in the office. And one morning, I kind of looked, my hair's gone a bit patchy. It's gone grey, I can't get over that. It's gone a bit patchy. Then here, where my fringe line is, was really getting patchy within the first 2 weeks. And genuinely, I asked at least 10 people, be it in the office or outside the offices, am I losing my hair? Now, I wouldn't be overly conscious in general, but when people kept on saying no to me, and I
Yeah.
kept looking in the mirror and seeing this, I'm like, I'm self-doubting myself of something that's physically adjusting in my features. And it wasn't until, again, to kind of loop back around again, I was living with my aunt in Kildare. She came back from a trip to Africa, and I was just about to walk out to the front door to help her with her suitcase, and she just goes like this. And she hadn't seen me in a month. She goes, what happened to your hair? I wasn't angry. I wasn't upset. I was like, it took one person off the cuff, off the fly, to kind of say, you've changed, or something isn't the same about you. Something isn't normal for your normal. To kind of say, why? Why did the other say, no, everything's fine? So then it goes back to the whole practice again of, is it us who might be a bit curious to say, am I doing something a bit different to fidgeting or stuff? Do I flip it to the other side? Is, are people afraid to say it to you? Are they afraid to disclose it to you? Are they afraid to highlight something you might do different? I don't have the answer to it, but it's very much food for thought in terms of what came first, the chicken or the egg.
Well, I think for an honest answer, you don't ask a Westerner, because I think culturally wise, we we don't, we might notice someone doesn't look great, or they've put on a little weight, or they've they're looking bloated, or they've lost a bit.
Mm.
I mean that where it looks like there's something going on, that they're stressed, that there's something wrong, and they'll say, "Oh my god, I feel awful, I look awful." And just go, "Don't you look great? Look at you, look good." There's not. I don't know what you're looking at. Um, and I think culturally we don't want to offend the other person. We don't, and so we don't say what's true. Whereas I certainly, I know children will tell you truthfully. I
Yeah, yeah,
remember going into work one day when I was here, and one of the other members of staff just went, "You look awful. Yesterday your face looked nice, but no, you look awful." And I was just like, "Okay." I was like, "Okay, but you're being honest. I'm not
yeah.
feeling great. I probably do." Um, but initially you're like, "Oh God, well, I'm not used to hearing that honesty in my life, because I grew up in a society probably that was, sugar coats and dances
Mm.
around, and you know, it's all about how you feel, in it, but you look great to us, but it's really about how you feel." And I know sometimes I can be, I can do that myself. I'm trying to be better at being honest, but I
So
think,
here's a question for you. Is it an awareness thing for you or an approach thing around the honesty piece?
which again, is it an awareness for?
Is it an awareness piece or an approach piece for you where you got that feedback from somebody that you used to work with to say, you look desperate today?
Yeah.
Did you respect the approach or did you hate their approach because it was quite damning, if you want, or direct? Or
It,
was it their awareness of your physical change that day that kind of made you a bit paranoid? Like, where's the balance there?
okay, so for me, initially, obviously, I was triggered. I was just like, "They're cheeky." That's
Mm.
not very nice to say, and I feel awful about myself. And do I? You start being like, "Oh, is it physically, or is my face at everything else? What is it?" But then I sit with it and I say, "Why does that bug me so much? Like, why do I need
Yeah.
someone else to say, 'Oh, you look good' all the time? That I should feel that within. And if I don't feel great that day, well, I'm not feeling great, and that's quite okay." It's interesting you ask this, because I haven't said this, but in after myself and my husband had our daughter, there's I knew our relationship would change, and we both decided that couples therapy was very important for us to navigate that change and not to lose that disconnect. And within it, in one of the sessions, it came up where the wonderful therapist was asking my husband, "How are you feeling things go?" I have a thing about details, like describing the details of events that have happened. So
Mm.
I might interject at times to say, "Yeah, but this also, and we were here," and things like that. And my husband said, "Well, I do feel Moira takes over the conversation a lot." And the therapist said, "That's interesting. I do feel the same." Now, the initial trigger for me was, I'm the problem. Is something hormonally as well. And I'm like, oh, I'm back to that younger self of, not being in a world where I was accepted for who I was, and trying to fit in what the rest of the world expected of
Mm.
me. And that's not a blame game. That's just a society that we grew up in. But I found that hard for about 2 days after. And then it clicked with me. And I said, "But I'm not giving him a voice. And where
Mm.
else do I do that?" Because in that instance, I'm thinking of my input in the situation. And, when I'm listening to others talk, I'm trying to explore and learn their internal world, not my perception of it, not how I saw the picture. And that was a huge learning curve for me. It was like, oh my God, yes. So as painful as that was to hear, it was so important for my growth in our relationship. I probably still at
And
times, I have to manage. I'm like, am I giving an opportunity here? I have to be aware of that, because it's important for me to say the normal. I don't know what's normal. I don't know. Sometimes the pitch in my tone might go up, and there's even just as I'm talking or I'm passionate, and I don't hear
Mm.
that. That's something I've never ever been able to understand. I'm trying, but it was natural for me. It's things about my mannerisms, or like small talk. Cannot do small talk.
Mm.
Anyway, so yeah, did
But
it?
it
I appreciate the honesty, and I respect that person more for being honest with me, because I can trust them more.
so you would say then, I suppose, again, if I'm trying to picture it in terms of two cylinders that contain water.
Yeah.
At the beginning of that particular scenario you're in, awareness and approach that are two cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
Both your awareness went up of your traits of over speaking and interrupting and kind of filling the gaps and voids made by your husband's speech. As a result of the increase of your awareness,
Mm-hmm.
the reaction and the formula equaled to your approach being improved as a result of that. Okay. It's really good to see things like that because you don't realize it sometimes until it happens.
It's triggered something in me. Why did it trigger something in me? That's about me. That's not about the person. Now, I do agree there's a way of saying something to someone at times, but then you can over sugarcoat too. Sometimes we need direct, and I think in that instance, it needs to be done in a safe space. You've got to both be in that vulnerable space, whether it's your weekly coffee where it's like, let's have that conversation about our relationship. And we've two neurodivergent brains going on here, so we need to keep track of how we're both feeling, and care, which we do. So I think there obviously is a way of saying something, how you say it, but I feel where something triggers, when I'm triggered by something, that's something I need to learn about myself, not about the other person. It's still going to be
Yeah, and
triggered
it's
by.
just, I agree with you, and it's again kind of the key thing I'm seeing from both yourself and your husband is you both had the motivation to kind of build your awareness and improve your approach. Whereas if there's misalignment there, it's a completely different conversation, and there's probably going to be more snakes versus ladders in that particular respect.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why, if you are experiencing issues in any relationship at any stage, we chose to do that to continue growing together instead of growing apart. We knew something, and I guess if we ever have another child, maybe we'll consider doing the same again, because every change in your family is going to impact your relationship and the amount of time you have. But I think for any couple, no matter what stage they're in, very important. It's vital, because you stay on the same page. You don't lose that connection, and you understand each other.
Yeah, no, very much
In
so.
our
Again, it's the mutual motivation. Say it again.
Well, I was going to say, I remember because I got married in Italy, so we didn't do the traditional Irish pre-course
Oh,
that you have to do before you get married in the church. And I remember my brother and my sister-in-law telling me about it. And when I heard about it, I just went, that's actually really good. And I know couples talk about, oh, we have to go do this course. But when I heard what was involved in the course, I thought, that's actually really important, because before you enter, whether you marry or you don't, but you choose a long-term relationship, you've got to know each other's values. You've got to know what way you're going to raise your children. You've got to know all them things of how each other ticks, how we're going to be there for each other during difficult times. And, you know, so I think it's actually so important in early stages of a relationship. And obviously, especially if you're going for a commitment, whatever that looks like.
and it's funny you're saying that. So I'll just put complete slam dunk of HR bias here. It's the same when people join a company, join a new job. What's the values of the company? What are they going to do if I'm having a bad time? Are they going to look after me? Is the culture right? How are they going to develop me? What happens if we have a disagreement? What mechanisms, support functions like HR are in place to deal with this? It's the same, how would you say, concept, I guess, albeit very much one P is professional, the other P is personal.
Yes, that's the same. Our values have to align in both. And it's all down to
Definitely.
communication and understanding. It's all relationships.
Yeah, it is genuinely. It is like people say, and it goes as kind of a slang term is the hardest part about an organization is the people. Same with a relationship. What's the hardest part with a relationship is two people together in an intimate
Yeah,
setting. And again, speaking in HR terms, the first P in terms of promotion is promotion of the first connection in the relationship, the first meet, the first date. The second promotion in that then is, are you going official in the relationship? The next P, I guess, is, do you move in together? The next P after that is, do you get engaged? The next P after that is, do you tie the knot? Do you get married? The next P then is parenthood. The next P then is retirement together. The next P then after that is slowing down. And then the final P then is pause.
and
It's
you know
funny.
when you say that.
You can build pictures and characteristics and similarities when it comes to, go ahead, we're lagging again.
Sorry, no, no, no. Could continue. We'll get. I can go to where I'm going after, and we'll the lag hopefully will work itself out on this.
No, I'd finished. I'd finished. I think it's the lag that's paused the conversation there. Great. So again, speaking about people on the neurodivergent scale or spectrum or category, it makes me reflect on a friend of mine I have. Again, kind of to paint a picture, I'll quote them or paraphrase them at best, is, Stephen, if I end up in the job of which the course I'm studying for, I'll have failed in life. And I said to him at the time, I said, what do you mean? He goes, I have an interest at best in what I'm studying, but I have no interest in working it. I remember he used to laughing at him saying, but I was like that when I came to secondary school and moving into third level education. That's when I got my spark. And spark is the key word here again. So lo and behold, he goes and he finishes his course anyway and never pursued one professional job in the space, was in nutrition. And done what he does and I love doing best is travelling. Just got on a plane when he finished uni, as he calls it, and went travelling. So I'm there, and at this point, we're obviously different countries and stuff, and catching up on WhatsApp calls. What are you at? What are you doing? How are you living, basically? How are you affording to do this? You get the odd job in a supermarket or doing those little small things, and then it's like, no, I've enough. Enough of doing this. So for him, he had ADHD. And obviously, I don't know the name of the particular medication, but I'm assuming there's a medication that allows you to focus when you have ADHD. I don't know the name of it. And to be fair to him, he didn't actually use that, I believe. For him was more so finding that spark. And his spark is, I don't want to work 9 to 5. I don't want to be stuck in a routine of 9 to 5, living in the same house, in the same country, for all my life until I hit retirement age. His objective was, I want to keep travelling. I want to work as little as possible. I want to earn as much as possible. And I want freedom. Lo and behold, this particular guy who hated college, would work in a college bar just to make his ends meet and save his money to go travelling when he had holidays, basically got in his head is, I'm going to create an online business. His online business started off with basically finding these massage guns somewhere in China and basically creating a drop shipping company that allowed him to sell these massage gun products at a profit in the US.
Wow.
Rinse and repeat. Then what happened is, after a small bit of success, that hunger, that spark got bigger. Okay, how do I make more money doing this? Again, if we think about the bell curve in terms of a concept, this was starting to skyrocket. Great money coming into his pocket every month and still satisfying the travel needs, the don't want to work 9 to 5 needs. Albeit there was times, I guess, when you had to put in the long hours to get it established and get it
Yeah,
on
yeah.
this growth trajectory. But he still had to do all his hobbies. And then what happened is the company hit a level of maturity, and this is going on probably 4 or 5 years now, whereby he could take a step back, employ people to do the tasks which would end up bringing him back to that 9 to 5 state to do it for him. And now I think he works like 2 or 3 hours a week just on
Wow.
maintenance. Make sure that the company keeps producing that money. He's with me now in Dubai. He was last week in Nepal, just going around the local villages in Nepal, up the mountains. I think 2 weeks before that he was in Myanmar in the jungles with the local people that have no civilization, just going around touring, still making the money, still hitting his life objectives, his goals, and still doing what he wants without that structure and probably in his space, the constraints,
Yeah.
all while having that neurodivergent label or
Yeah.
category or stereotype.
That's incredible because there's so many entrepreneurs out there extremely successful that are neurodivergent, and it's because I believe it's because there's no normal for me. I define it, measure it. It doesn't exist. Same with perfectionism,
Mhm.
but that path that we're all supposed to follow according to society, and then it's those who take the path less traveled
Yeah,
that
yeah.
end up being so successful because I see that there's more. I can do something else here. I don't need to go and get this degree, masters, follow that job, stay in that for the rest of my life. Rinse and repeat, as you say. Every day, every week, every month, every year. And maybe I'll get a promotion. Maybe I won't. For some people, that's what they want to do. But for others, there's different things in life I can do. I can explore, I can enjoy, I can create my own work environment that suits me. And maybe it's because we have to. I don't know, and it's a shame that I guess that's why my push would be for companies to create a space where you can have diverse minds and you can allow each individual to work the way that best serves them. That letting go of control, that needing to monitor and everything that someone does. The job's done, whatever way it's done, it's the way it's done. As long as it's done to the
And
standards you
that's the
keep.
thing. Exactly. And for me, we can mention environment, we can create culture. The one word for me, and again, it goes back to that interview that we're hiring for at the minute, position wise, is motivation.
Yeah, yeah,
You create the right motivation for anybody, and what matters less then is the environment around them. If they're motivated to do the job, it should tick the right boxes. It should tick their skill set, their personality, the job, the profile and role, and the rest should fall in. It's getting the right person with the right motivation. That's it.
yeah. Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for today, for your time. I've taken so much of it.